I want to add to the class element in the two pieces of legislation that you've spoken about. In the Electronic Communications Act, both in the Electronic Communications Act and in the Criminal Offences Act, there's a certain reverse of principle. In media regulations, the best piece of regulation, and Audrey made that point, is the one that centralizes the operator, the owner, which forces the owner to implement the gatekeeping measures that sanitize the material. Any piece of legislation that aims directly at journalists creates a chilling effect. Okay. Now look at the Electronic Communications Act. This provision that we have 207, 208 in the Criminal Offences Act, its application targets the speech maker. If you go to the Electronic Communications Act, it is the same thing that happens.
That's right.
But it even does something worse. It raises a presumption of knowledge against the speaker and creates a safe harbor for the operator.
Yes, it exempts the operator.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let me read it. Section 76 of the Electronic Communications Act. We passed that only in 2008. That's how many years after we had removed criminal libel. It says, a person who by means of electronic communication service knowingly sends a communication which is false or misleading, and likely to prejudice the efficiency of life-saving service, or to endanger the safety of any person, ship, aircraft, vessel, or vehicle, commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of not more than 3,000 penalty units, or to a term of imprisonment of not more than 5 years. So even here, we have escalated the punishment, whereas in the Criminal Offences Act, it's a misdemeanor and attracts a maximum of only 3 years, a maximum of 3 years. It says a person is taken to know that a communication is false or misleading if that person did not take reasonable steps to find out whether the communication was false, misleading, reckless, or fraudulent. Then 3, that's where George talks about. Subsection 2 does not apply to the operator or provider of a network or service over which a communication is sent.
Yes. So, in essence, we have created a safe harbor for the operator who must be bearing the greater responsibility. But just a small comment between ourselves as practitioners and the owners. When the matter is against the owners, the journalists mobilize to the defense of their bosses. When the matter is about the journalist, they keep quiet. And it's just a point that going forward, I think we need to keep in mind. I wanted to make a small point that I know it can unruffle people, but the truth needs to be said. We've just pointed out the non-sustainability of the use of sections 207, 208 in addressing media infractions. The other that I want to draw attention to is particularly the limited nature of the court's application of contempt, also as protection against, contempt is a very general, but I'm talking about the specific application in media-related cases. And I use the very, it's emotional for me, but I'll still talk about something. Take the Munte 3. And I have said this consistently, that I joke with friends that when they say the Munte 3 crossed the line, I say no, they erased it. So you have a person of personal distinction and professional integrity, like Mrs. Wood, that these people did what they did to her. The court could protect her then as a sitting judge. But immediately she left as a judge. If the same people carried the same content on the same person, there will be no remedy.
There will be no criminal remedy.
You understand? And when we talk about these things, even though we all express preference for civil remedies, we also admit that it's not entirely the same, because the time involved in pursuing a civil matter the cost involved. And let us also face it, offensive content does not only injure your reputation, sometimes it does injure your feelings as well. You understand? So nobody is calling for criminal legislation to address these things. All we are saying is that if there is anybody within the society who feels that there is something that protects them and therefore uninterested in the bigger question that we are all addressing, they need to pause